Good evening, and welcome to a special Tuesday installment of the 48 Laws of Power discussion series. Before we get started, let's have a little moment of hello to chat. Suzanne, fancy seeing you here. It's good to see you. Small Mousen, good to see you as well. Ninja Kitty, always good to see you. You were going to call me, but then I saw you were going live. Yeah. Gonna go live. That's not supposed to be for another 2 hours, I don't think. But good to see you too, Inumers. Pretty sure we'll be done here before that. These seem to be getting shorter, although this one might take a while. We're gonna do law number 11 tonight. Then I'm probably gonna do law number 12 tomorrow. Then I'm probably gonna do law 13. This is a different book. It's a different book, Squaw Bob. But good to see you, Mr. Squabbles. Devo in the house. Good evening, my dude. Yeah, I got a fun one. I don't know. There might be a couple of people in here who aren't familiar with this, but it's a discussion of the 48 Laws of Power book by Robert Greene. And we are currently on number 11. Well, that's good to hear. If you have any questions in you, you can always drop them or drop them in my any one of my DMs if you want. Doesn't have to be like during the show or whatever. Although in the comment section, that's cool too. I love when people jump in the comment section. But tonight we talk about Law 11, which is always learn to keep people dependent on you. Oh, hello, Miss Jujubee. Good to see you. And being as someone who never really had people dependent on me before, like I don't have kids, never been married. Uh, Having not read this chapter ahead, at least not in, since the last time I read this, which was many years ago, I don't know how much I'm gonna have to hear about, have to say specifically, my bad, about how to keep people dependent on you. This is not something I'm super familiar with. So I might need your guys' help a lot more this time than in some other circumstances and instances. Well, I try to be dependable, but I fail. I mean, I don't know if I even try. Oh, Shalomania! Welcome. Yeah, you made it, and I haven't even really started yet. I had to give people a moment or two to file in and see who's going to stick around. Try to explain kind of like what we're doing here. Mm. I mean, I do know my way around a Discord, that's for sure. Although, in order to navigate Discord, you have to like log into Discord, which I don't know. That just seems like too much work to do these days. But um, without further ado, shall we get started? No Tim Pool for you today. It's all Darth Beautifus. That's a big that's a big drop. I mean, if I get priority over Timmy Pool, is it even World War III? Hello, Judge Maddie. Good to see you, my brother. So yeah, this right here. Learn to keep people dependent on you. Something I know nothing about, so shit, we gonna learn today. Judgment. To maintain your independence, you must always be needed and wanted. The more you are relied on, the more freedom you have. Make people depend on you for their happiness and prosperity, and you have nothing to fear. Never teach them enough so that they can do without you. What? What? I I don't even know where to start with the judgment on this one. Uh, how the hell does having people be dependent on you translate into independence for yourself? This, I don't like that at all. This is counterintuitive completely. Like, there's no, like, I haven't even gotten through the first sentence. The first sentence, to maintain your independence, you must always be needed and wanted. Wait, what? Oh man, this is gonna be a long night, y'all. Strap yourselves in. Uh, if you need to get up and get a drink or use the restroom, now might be a good time before we get too far into it. Like, I'm gonna be stuck in this first sentence here, I think, for a while. Uh, get yourself a drink if you need one. Go ahead and roll yourself. Uh, get yourself some smoke together if that's. Mm. Maybe because they won't be up in your grill because you be handling the stuff. I mean, yeah, this is starting with a bit of a riddle, in my opinion, and I mean, I guess we're gonna figure it out. Hopefully, the more you're relied on, the more freedom you have. That doesn't make any sense either. Make people depend on you for their happiness and prosperity, and you have nothing to fear except for when their happiness, like say you ever do, as they say, fall off, and you can't provide that happiness and prosperity that they was dependent on you for, and then all of a sudden, oh, but you ever been strung up a lamppost before? I mean, make love to a good woman in the meantime. This sounds like a terrible bit of advice from the squabbles. Uh, don't listen to squabs with their bad advice. Clairview, welcome. We're just beginning to unravel the beginnings of the mysteries of the 11th law, and so far nothing makes any sense. But some of these laws aren't applicable to me. I'm gonna figure out what my man's judgment here is. Never teach them enough so that they can do without you. That's the only bit here that makes sense. Like, I guess if people need you, I've never really felt the need to be needed, so this law just probably isn't super helpful to me. Anywho, let's get a little deeper into this. Transgression of the law. Sometime in the Middle Ages, a mercenary soldier, and they put this word here, condottiere. I am never gonna say this word again. So if I see this word again, which it looks like I'm going to, I'm just gonna say mercenary soldier, whose name has not been recorded, so that's how important this guy was. Saved the town of Siena from a foreign aggressor. How could the good citizens of Siena reward him? No amount of money or honor could possibly compare in value to the preservation of a city's liberty. The citizens thought of making the mercenary the lord of the city, but even that, they decided, wasn't recompense enough. At last, one of them stood before the assembly, called to debate this matter, and said, "Let us kill him and then worship him as our patron saint." And so they did. Just in case anyone here is wondering, I advocate against heroism, especially in modern culture, with like what can happen if you like go ahead and do a white knight, and then all of a sudden the next thing you know, cops is arresting you for protecting someone else. And you see more and more cases of this happening in certain districts in the modern. I hate to say it, but the concept of good Samaritans and chivalry mayhaps be dead. Like chivalry, as not the context of what it truly means is the Knight's Code, but chivalry as it was understood by modern culture, which also, I mean, they both might be dead. Who knows? But this guy saved the city, and all the jewels and all the money not enough. We can't offer you the lordship. That's still not enough. We're gonna kill you and worship you as our patron saint. Wait, what? No, no, I didn't agree to this. This sounds like very problematic to me. I don't want to play Law 11. I'm gonna scratch this one off my bucket list. The Count of Carmagnola was one of the bravest and most successful of all the mercenaries. In 1442, late in his life, he was in the employ of the city of Venice, which was in the midst of a long war with Florence. So we're fighting in Italy, by the sound of it. The Count was suddenly recalled to Venice. A favorite of the people, he was received there with all kinds of honor and splendor. That evening he was to dine with the Doge himself in the Doge's palace. Doge, I don't know, I don't speak Italian. I can't even hardly speak Australian. On the way into the palace, however, he noticed that the guard was leading him in a different direction from the usual. Crossing the famous Bridge of Sighs, he suddenly realized where they were taking him. To the dungeon. He was convicted on a trumped up charge, and the next day in the Piazza San Marco, before a horrified crowd who could not understand how his fate had changed so drastically, he was beheaded. Oh my. Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're trying to convince me to keep people dependent on me, you're doing a lousy job. I don't want people dependent on me at all. This is how dependence ends up. I don't know. Did I lose chat? Is my chat broken now? Because it looks like everybody just popped in, said hello, and then now I've lost it. That's not cool, guys. I hate when I get myself beheaded. Right? I mean, the first guy was a hero of the people, and he got himself killed so they could worship him. The second guy was revered by the people, and he got himself killed, beheaded. This sounds like a lot of work. I'm here, I'm here. I was making you dependent upon me. I mean, I can see you. I can see you all. It just looked like it had frozen for a second, but I guess maybe everyone was waiting for me to shut up. Keep your head. Remember what the church mouse said. Refresh my memory. I'm not sure. Depends how you look at it. Explain. I'm depending on a slice. Since you ordered a pizza, nobody was like, hey, Darth, I see that you're doing a stream. Would you like us to order you some pizza as well? No, that didn't happen. Ah, yeah, this dependent shit looks like it's for the birds, y'all. I I don't want to get beheaded. I don't want to be worshipped as a patron saint if that's how you got to go out. I would rather just have like a pizza and some shekels and like leave me alone. This is why I don't advocate for heroics like this. And this kind of seems like the general theme here. This like maybe there'll be further transgressions that have more applicable. Sorry, y'all, I'm stalling because it's almost like 20 after, and mm, they've come a long way with the keto. Not gonna lie, they have come a long way with the substitute for bread products because that's really what's killing a pizza. Pizza's just the crust. But they've gotten a lot better in the last couple of years as keto's gotten more popular. The quality of keto products has gone up because it used to be shit. But that's a completely different tangent on keto. Mm. Dang it, if I could remember your address, I would totally order you a pineapple anchovy pizza. That would be awful. You gotta be quicker than that. You gotta be quicker than that. Oh yeah, here we go. Cheers. For those of you who celebrate the great fact that it's always 420 somewhere. Have you ever had a pineapple anchovy pizza? How do you know it's not good? I bet you've never had one. I like pineapple. I don't know if I like anchovies. I haven't had that in a very long. Like I think I tried it once, and it's just like this is nothing I would ever order, and nobody I know would ever order it. So just never eat it. But my uh, fondness for like seafood in general has developed over the years. So I still don't think anchovies would be good though. Dependency doesn't work well for either party in the long run, in my honest opinion. You really cannot depend on anyone. Too much work and too many variables and outside influences. Yeah, I mean, if you put your prosperity in the dependence of someone else, you put yourself at risk. If you make a bunch of other people dependent on you, you put yourself at a huge fucking risk. I totally agree, and it is a lot of work. You have to maintain that shit. Uh, just thank you for that input, uh, Claire. Yeah, dependency is equivalent to expectations, and I mean, as long as you learn to manage your expectations, I guess you don't really have to depend on anyone. But yeah, if your expectations get out of control and you become too dependent, I'd say you say Bernie Madoff. I say you become the U.S. government, and I'm not gonna lie to you, like they got way too many like money leeches dependent on the U.S. tax code right now. And do you see the debt, y'all? Anybody seen that debt lately? 33 trillion of dollars. We ain't got that kind of money. And we still giving away money to foreign countries and uh, welfare moms, basically. Social security patients. I'm not going to get started on the welfare state, but there's a lot of dependence in this country, and keeping people dependent on you is going to cause your collapse. Sam Bankford, man. I know only I know only very superficial knowledge of this case, but I guarantee you he'll never serve anything close to 110 years. That will never happen. Ah, yeah, I knew you were facing. I can I can read typo because I've been on the internet for a long time. And yeah, I mean, facing 110 years dependent on his testimony, which could get his life significantly shortened because of the people he is allegedly connected to, although I don't speak on any of that. I'm not a lawyer and I don't know really a whole hell of a lot. I know there's a lot of deep running connections on this case, but of course, but it could get sentenced. He just cannot serve it. And, yeah, that's my point. Is his lifetime probably not nearly as long as he thinks it is. Doesn't matter if he gets the full 110. Like, there's a lot of people that have a very vested interest in making sure that he stays very, very quiet. And people, when they've been locked up for just a little while, if they're not built for it, they will definitely become very motivated to say whatever they have to get out of there. Anywho, we got a little punch in here, I guess. The two horses. Two horses were carrying two loads. The front horse went well, but the rear horse was lazy. The men began to pile the rear horse's load on the front horse. When they had transferred it all, the rear horse found it easy going, and he said to the front horse, "Toil and sweat. The more you try, the more you have to suffer." When they reached the tavern, the owner said, "Why should I fodder two horses when I carry all on one? I had better give the one all the food it wants and cut the throat of the other. At least I shall have the hide." And so he did. This is a Leo Tolstoy fable. And all I'm going to say is that, ladies and gentlemen, is how communism works. Or how it works effectively. One of the counterintuitive human traits it took me a while to learn. When people become dependent, they actually become resentful on their benefactor. Like, see, the law here says keep people dependent on you. I I see no value here where this is a positive thing for your power. Like, unless you have people so dependent on you that, like, I don't know, this symbiotic relate, like you get everything from them and they get everything from you. Just none of this is like does not fit with me. I keep trying to say what you just said. Yeah, I mean, but not just that, like if you get someone dependent on you, maybe if you aspire to be a cult leader or the government, yeah, like some sort of like powerful leadership is, I guess it's in that realm of power. Like if you're aspiring to be like some sort of official. And but look at all these heroes. It's like I'm very intrigued to read Mr. Green's interpretation because so far I just strongly disagree. And we will find out. Like interpretation. Many of the great, what did we call this word? Mercenaries of Renaissance Italy suffered the same fate as the patron saint of Siena and the Count of Carmignola. They won battle after battle for their employers, only to find themselves banished, imprisoned, or executed. The problem was not ingratitude, it was that there were so many other mercenaries, as able and valiant as they were. They were replaceable. Nothing was lost by killing them. Meanwhile, the older among them had grown powerful themselves, and wanted more and more money for their services. How much better, then, to do away with them and hire a younger, cheaper mercenary? That was the fate of the Count of Carmagnola, who had started to act impudently and independently. He had taken his power for granted without making sure that he was truly indispensable. Aha! That's why we're using mercenaries as a. What flavor the Kool-Aid in my cult? We drink liquor in my cult. And we smoke weed. We smoke weed and we drink liquor in my cult. There's no Kool-Aid here. If you want Kool-Aid, man, this is not a kindergarten classroom. And the people that were drinking Kool-Aid in their cults, they're all dead. We're not gonna be dead. We're gonna party and be fucking dope. Fuck out of here. Kool-Aid. A mom with a teenager, young adult is another example. Uh, I mean, you got kids. Or will you go with flavor? We ain't drinking the fucking Kool-Aid. Stop it with that shit. Yeah, I mean weed. That's about right. Weed and alcohol. I do love me good whiskey. You know, Jamestown was actually Flavor Aid, and I love that Juju knows that. You guys are way too much drinking Kool-Aid. I hope y'all don't have a secret cult that I'm not a part of. I like the liquor part of your cult. I'm in. Okay, so I'm starting to understand now exactly what went wrong with these guys is being a mercenary is tricky work because of all those different things. There's always another mercenary. I mean, but you can't you can't treat everybody you hire fully dispensably in this regard. I'm in your cult. I'm in your cult and Juju's cult. If Cat Ninja ever starts a cult, might join it. Inumers doesn't need to start a cult. Judge Maddie never needs to start a cult. Okay, now that we have decided who can and can have a cult, I always wonder if I could easily recruit to a cult and turn out the answer is yes. I mean, the power of persuasion is partly the power of suggestion of the persuader and the power of suggestibility of the persuade. Like, maybe it's easy because the right person has persuaded you to join the cult. Maybe nobody else could do it. Maybe it's not that easy. Maybe you just found your weakness. You might be. We might all be. But don't be a mercenary. That's what I got out of this is like if you're gonna fight for somebody, I don't know, don't do it, I guess. I don't see any of the upside of being a Renaissance mercenary. Anyway, but let's continue. Such is the fate, to a less violent degree, one hopes, of those who do not make others dependent on them. Sooner or later, someone comes along who can do the job as well as they can. Someone younger, fresher, less expensive, and less threatening. Because, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like, if someone starts building up a reputation, then they get this reputation. They start expecting more and more from you. Meanwhile, they're aging out, so they're not going to be as efficient as they were anyway. But if you can get someone who hasn't developed a reputation to do it for cheaper, and mercenaries are cheap. Well, they were. Mercenaries aren't cheap, and nothing's cheap anymore. Damn inflation. It's because these fucking dependents. Don't say depends. We're not doing dependencies here. I'm clearly in full revolt against this law. I'm glad I did this on Tuesday and not my regular day. Okay, we have a secret cult. Secret cults being formed everywhere. Good night, Inya. Thank you for stopping by. And if you wouldn't hate it if you kept listening, but this is a very weird law, and I ain't with it. Such is the fate, to a less violent degree, one hopes, of those who do not make others dependent on them. Sooner or later, someone comes along who can do the job as well as they can, someone younger, fresher, less expensive, less threatening. Maybe, maybe 10 years ago, but nowadays it seems like nobody wants to do any of the jobs. Every time, everyone I talk to is like, yeah, if you happen to be in the business of running any type of small business or anything, like nobody wants to do the job. Everybody wants you to give them a fortune, not knowing how inflation works. Be the only one who can do what you do, and make the fate of those who hire you so entwined with yours that they cannot possibly get rid of you. Otherwise, you will be someday forced to cross your own bridge of sighs. So don't be expendable, is what they're saying. I'm starting to understand a little bit about this law, like what that's what they really mean. Don't be expendable if you're dealing with people. And like they use very extreme cases in this situation, but obviously most cases when you're severed out of your relationship, your situation, your point of influence or power is not going to be to the level of like being mercenary murdered. Someone's just going to come along and replace you because you got lazy, you got complacent, you thought you were in a position of strength, and you didn't see the fact that, oh, because you're not improving, and but you like are costing more over time anyway, I can just replace you with someone who is trying to improve and absolutely get them for cheaper, get them pushing harder, and just when they start to get to your point, do the same thing, replace them. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I assume it works often enough that it's a viable idea. I'm cracking the riddle. Don't worry, don't worry. None of us are with this law because we didn't get to this point just yet, but I have I have reached the point of the interpretation where I think I understand now that it just means don't be replaceable, don't be expendable. Offer a thing that nobody else has. Give them something that they can't get anywhere else, and they will not be able to get rid of you. My pizza's getting farther away from me. I am very dependent on this delivery driver right now. Tuesdays are best for true crime, so maybe since there was a cult and a beheading, it is Tuesday stream material. I don't know. I hadn't read, or I didn't remember this one, and there's a reason I didn't remember this one is because it's just this is kind of just like duh, but but he really Robert really kind of took a while to get around to explaining what this really meant. Now we're going to cover an observance of the law. Now that I think I know what the law means, it's going to make more sense. When Otto von Bismarck became a deputy in the Prussian parliament in 1874, he was 32 years old and without an ally or friend. How did you make a deputy in Prussian parliament with no ally, no friend? That don't make no sense. Looking around him, he decided that the side to ally himself with was not the parliament's liberals or conservatives, not any particular minister, and certainly not the people, because government of the people, by the people, for the people, but the people are retarded. I can't do a good impersonation, but I like that little bit of video from Mr. Cool Frog's intro. I mean, you kind of have to be if you want to be secured. You have to make yourself indispensable because if you are replaceable, you lose all your powers. Like this delivery driver right now, Jujubee's about to maybe get her pizza, maybe murder this delivery driver, but provided she doesn't get caught allegedly doing this hypothetical thing that isn't actually happening, there will always be another delivery driver for the next pizza. Someone's going to take that job again. You don't want to know what happened to the last guy who did this job. It was with the king, Frederick William the Fourth. This was an odd choice to say the least, for Frederick was at a low point of his power, a weak, indecisive man. He consistently gave in to the Liberals in Parliament. In fact, he was. Why is the king always? Why is it always the Liberals? Oh, because Liberals are always trying to change things, and conservatives are not trying hard enough to change them back. So the Liberals always make that they always make the progress, and the conservatives always just slow them down and never do nothing else till everything collapses. That's how every government has functioned up until this point. But that's funny because we're gonna figure out why this man friended the king. In fact, he was spineless and stood for much that Bismarck disliked, personally and politically. Yet Bismarck courted Frederick night and day. When other deputies attacked the king for his many inept moves, only Bismarck stood by him. So he's saying about the king, he made this a point, even though this seems very, very politically unsavvy. He's going. I'm warming up. Don't be. Yeah, as make yourself indispensable. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I misread what you said before, Mr. Madness. But yeah, make yourself indispensable, and then they're stuck with you. We got another little parable here. The cat that walked by himself. Then the woman laughed and set the cat a bowl of warm white milk and said, "O cat, you are as clever as a man, but remember that your bargain was not made with the man or the dog, and I do not know what they will do when they come home." "What is that to me?" said the cat. "If I have my place in the cave by the fire and my warm white milk 3 times a day, I do not care what the man or the dog can do." And from that day to this, best beloved, 3 proper men out of 5 will always throw things at a cat whenever they meet him, and all proper dogs will chase him up a tree. But the cat keeps his side of the bargain too. He will kill mice, and he will be kind to babies when he is in the house, just as long as they do not pull his tail too hard. But when he has done that, and between times, and when the moon gets up and the night comes, he is the cat that walks by himself, and all places are alike to him. Then he goes out to the wet wild woods or up the wet wild trees or on the wet wild roofs, waving his tail and walking by his wild lone. Man, cats don't like wet. Fuck out of here. Just so stories, Rudyard Kipling. So basically, that's how cats work. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good explanation of cats. I mean, the cat does the things the cat does in a proper, if you have a proper cat and you take care of it, and then it fucks off and does its own thing most of the time. But the things a cat, like if you've actually got a good mousing cat, like that's indispensable and worth the price because mice are gross, and cats will make sure you don't ever have to deal with them. I mean, alive, hopefully. Okay, so this law that at the beginning felt like it wasn't going to make any sense to me is starting to make a lot more sense to me. Heidi, howdy. It's very good to see you, like, actually at one of these live. So much Heidi in the comments section on the replay gang. Glad you're here. Okay, where were we? We were with von Bismarck, weren't we? And von Bismarck is befriending the feeble, useless king. So let's get back to that. Finally, it all paid off. In 1851, Bismarck was made a minister in the king's cabinet. Now he went to work. Time and again he forced the king's hand, getting him to build up the military, to stand up to the liberals, to do exactly as Bismarck wished. He worked on Frederick's insecurity about his manliness, challenging him to be firm and to rule with pride. And he slowly restored the king's powers until the monarchy was once again the most powerful force in Prussia. So he he basically went in butt kissing. Blame Amazon. Damn it, Amazon. Do go check out the Rumble channel. I'm gonna start playing around with that more. I say this like every week. I'd like to start playing around with that more, but we will see. It's been a kind of a struggle for me lately to be even considering doing two streams right now on my actual channel with other things that I do or don't do. But yeah, you see what's happening with Bismarck here, right? We doing this switch up now that he's actually got himself into a point where he's got an important position. He manipulates the king to get his own damn power back, basically, but do it in accordance to his vision. So he's basically proxying the king as his own source of power. And the more powerful the king gets, the more he becomes dependent on the one who's proxying him, the puppet master, if you will. quite genius. When Frederick died in 1861, his brother William assumed the throne. William disliked Bismarck intensely and had no intention of keeping him around. But he also inherited the same situation his brother had, enemies galore who wanted to nibble his power away. He actually considered abdicating, feeling he lacked the strength to deal with this dangerous and precarious position. But Bismarck insinuated himself once again. He stood by the new king, gave him strength, and urged him into firm and decisive action. The king grew dependent on Bismarck's strong-arm tactics to keep his enemies at bay, and despite his antipathy toward the man, he soon made him his prime minister. This is how you make yourself indispensable. You control other people who is weak enough to be controlled, even if you are not strong enough to control them with your own actual power. You manipulate them into. Doing what you need them to do. The two quarreled often over policy. Bismarck was much more conservative, but the king understood his own dependency. Whenever the prime minister threatened to resign, the king gave in to him. Time after time, it was in fact Bismarck who set state policy. Years later, Bismarck's actions as Prussia's prime minister led to the various German states led the various German states to be united into one country. Now Bismarck finagled the kings into letting himself be crowned Emperor of Germany. Oh yeah, yeah, sure. It's cool. You can all give me your crowns. I'm good with that. Yet it was really Bismarck who had reached the heights of power. As right-hand man to the Emperor and as Imperial Chancellor and Knighted Prince, he pulled all the levers. So yeah, the king he was backing was the Emperor, but he had the actual power over him the whole time. So what are you gonna do? Sneaky genius indeed. A brilliant play. The Iron Chancellor. Is that another story? Is there a correlation there? Because that really does kind of sound like it. Like the royal vizier. I mean, you could look at our current situation right now and be like, whoever is actually running that shit show, the current government in the current country of the United States and well, all over it, all type of other places as well. You can see this. Oh, that was Bismarck's name, the Iron Chancellor. I did not know that. Thank you for that little tidbit there, Mr. Matness, with your boomery wisdom and your life experience well beyond mine. It's greatly appreciated to have all types here. Uh, Heidi's Darth Hideous. You're an indispensably sneaky genius, and you got a lot of us hooked on these laws too. I just like trying to understand them. Because when I first started this stream, I was just like, I don't see how the hell this is beneficial in any way, shape, or form. But we have gotten to a good level of explanation where at least I think I get what Robert Greene was trying to convey with these stories specifically in the order in which he told them to make sure that like everybody got like well at least the point was got across. 19th century Germany issue bailiwick. That's that's a that's different. Anywho, we're gonna get into this interpretation. I think I got a good understanding of what this interpretation is going to say. But most young and ambitious politicians looking out on the political landscape of 1840s Germany would have tried to build a power base among those with the most power. Bismarck saw different. Joining forces with the powerful can be foolish. They will swallow you up just as the Doge of Venice swallowed up the Count of Carmagnola, whatever that says. No one will come to depend on you if they are already strong. If you are ambitious, it is much wiser to seek out weak rulers or masters with whom you can create a relationship of dependency. You become their strength, their intelligence, their spine, what power you hold. If they got rid of you, the whole edifice would collapse. Necessity rules the world. People rarely act unless compelled to. If you create no need for yourself, then you will be done away with at first opportunity. If, on the other hand, you understand the laws of power and make others depend on you for their welfare, if you can counteract their weakness with your own iron and blood, in Bismarck's phrase, then you will survive your masters as Bismarck did. You will have all the benefits of power without the thorns that come from being a master, and that right there is the true gain in that is you get all the benefits of having all this power, but everyone else on the outside sees the person you're backing as the power source. So you don't come with any of the like bullshit. You just have all the influence. It's a indispensably sneaky genius right there. To be the number two guy with a number one influence. Dude, I tried to read this book on my own for at least 6 months, as long as library let me. Couldn't do it. But you reading it and making examples of your own as well make all the difference. This is why I wanted to talk about it, because there's a lot of things like a lot of these references here are very clear historical references, but they can very easily be translated in so many ways to just things that like I've experienced in my own life, things I see today. Like there's so many things. It's just like, well, that's why this thing that I see right now is a problem or a thing, or this is why there's power here and not there. Some things just don't make any sense to me, but that's why I like exploring it, because not everyone thinks like me. Not everyone is going to see things the way I see them. And I like having perspective shifts so that I can give either more, definitely more strength to my position, even if it means weakening what I think my position is to take a better position. That's why you might find my opinions on things change a bit more than most people's do, because I like to be a little more flexible in my, okay, well, that makes perfect sense. I didn't think of that. But I like to be open to the idea that I might be wrong, which is why I like to try to test myself to see if I can. This is my understanding of this. Let's talk about it. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. Thus, a wise prince will think of ways to keep his citizens of every sort and under every circumstance dependent on the state and on him, and then they will always be trustworthy. Niccolo Machiavelli. Machiavelli is a, yeah, 13th century genius. This is true today, like, and this is what the government is trying to do: get the population to be fully dependent on them, and then the population will be fully compliant to whatever they tell them. And this is why a lot of these things are going on today. I have a few core beliefs I will not waver on. The rest is open for discussion. I mean, I not that Machiavelli. That's Machiavelli, not Machiavelli. It is not the 1990s, unfortunately. I I kind of wish it could have just stayed the 1990s and we could have just like. I guess that's why when they wrote the plot line for the Matrix and they put all the humans in the machine, they put it like in the 1990s, early 2000s, when the peak of our civilization started reaching its tipping point and started heading towards the collapse factor. But yeah, you can see these things today. Okay, sometimes with these little punch-ins in the PDF, the titles and the usually the whole thing after that gets all messed up. But this is the I am Erie. I and the yeah. It's a lot of. This doesn't make any sense. I don't know what that is. And the and. The I'm in the IRI. I'm gonna try to read it. I'm gonna try to figure out what the hell it means. An extravagant young vine, vainly ambitious of independence and fond of rambling at large, despised the alliance of a stately elm that grew near, and courted her embraces. Having risen to some small height without any kind of support, she shot forth her flimsy branches to an uncommon and superfluous length, calling on her neighbor to take notice how little she wanted his assistance. "Poor infatuated shrub," replied the elm, "how inconsistent is thy conduct! Wouldst thou be truly independent, thou shouldst carefully apply those juices to the enlargement of thy stem, which thou lavishest in vain upon unnecessary foliage. I shortly shall behold thee grovelling on the ground, yet countenanced, indeed, by many of the human race, who, intoxicated with vanity, have despised economy, and who, to support for a moment their empty boast of independence, have exhausted the very source of it in frivolous expenses." That was a lot. I need God. Thank you for making that tolerable. Don't talk all romantic like that. Uh, Machiavelli. That depends on your definition of good. I studied Machiavelli while I was going through my first bout of all this, trying to understand what philosophy really meant. And from my understanding of Machiavelli, he was ruthless, but he was also pragmatic and very fair. But the fact that he executed like decision making with a lot of ruthlessness, and sometimes his pragmatic understanding of situations it involved some very distasteful acts, because when it's time to fuck, I'm not gonna say please, I'm gonna fuck, which is basically what he did. I mean, he was a very big manipulator right up until he got powerful enough that, like, if he just wanted to fuck, he was gonna fuck. Like, but I actually like a lot of the philosophy of Machiavelli. I'm a I'm a big agreeer with a large portion of that. Castro is in the house. Oh, by the way, I saw your message. I did get your message. I don't know how to get a hold of you. I mean, outside of being on like YouTube or Rumble, but we do need to have a conversation for the record. I mean, to be fair though, Juju, anybody who gets to any point of like political, military power, they have to have the ability to manipulate. They have to have the ability to bend other people's will to their own, or yeah, I mean, I'm on Twitter, I'm on most of the places, Discord, all that shit, like, but yeah, drop me a message and let me know where to get a hold of you at, even an email address. I'll get probably get the notification within at least 3 days. I mean, I tend to see things a little bit different than other people do, and like I said, I dug into uh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that like I wouldn't do it. I don't agree, but I understand. So it's a bit easier with me. I'm I'm probably going to cover Machiavelli and Marcus Aurelius and a bunch of different other like great historical thinkers on this channel. Like, that's why I kind of want to start getting through this book, is because I want to build into a lot more discussions, which honestly enough leads me right into this message right here. Can you do a brief review of how, why you want to review this book by chapter, law by law? Because it's a very good insight into a lot of different philosophical concepts that are, I'd say, mostly surface level, in my opinion. Like, there's not too much extreme depth with the 48 laws, but it's a good introduction to what I'd like to do next, which is more and more deeper content. Uh, like stuff from Sun Tzu, stuff from Marcus Aurelius, stuff from Niccolo Machiavelli, maybe do some Nietzsche, like cover things deeper depth that this is just basically like a good warm up to get used to doing the readings and all the things and the talking. I like the 48 Laws. I wanted to read it again. I figured if I read it and did a commentary series on it, I would probably understand it a lot better. It's the 48 Laws of Power. There's 48 laws, and then there's a preface, and there's a whole thing at the end. It's a lot to try to understand, but I don't think anything in here is too super complex. When you break it down, it's just like, oh yeah, this is human interaction and human nature. I love the human nature aspect of it. So I don't know if that answers your question in fullness, Mr. Matness, but there's a several different reasons I wanted to do this one. Did we do the sexy one? What 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 huh? What? I I didn't do the sex. Anywho, keys to power. The ultimate power is the power to get people to do as you wish. That is the ultimate power, by the way. The power of being able to bend people's will to your own. When you can do this without having to force people or hurt them, when they willingly grant you what you desire, then your power is untouchable. The best way to achieve this position is to create a relationship of dependence. The master requires your services. He is weak or unable to function without you. You have enmeshed yourself in his work so deeply that doing away with you would bring him great difficulty, or at least mean valuable time lost in training another to replace you. Once such a relationship is established, you have the upper hand. And that was where I made my first mistake in trying to assess this law is I thought he was trying to say like from a position of power have dependents that are less powerful than you underneath you dependent on you. No, that is a traditional dynamic that breeds all this stuff that we were talking about, like when you're dependent on somebody and they actually need you for their lifeblood, that leads to huge. Lola Montez, yes, that was a fun story. The infection. But yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that the people that are currently in charge of running the administration they've read a lot of books. It doesn't seem that they've read this one because there's a lot in here that's like if you can get people to do what you want without forcing them or hurting them, oh my, how your power becomes untouchable. If you can if you can get people to not only willingly but gladly do what you want them to do, that becomes like an ultimate level of control. And sometimes when you just have the correct answers to shit, And I mean this in a very just like down boots on the ground type of discussion. Like if you just have the plan, and as the plan is going, you can work with them to adjust it. They will definitely be dependent on you to run the organization of the plan. Once such a relationship is established, you have the upper hand, the leverage to make the master do as you wish. It is the classic case of the man behind the throne, the servant of the king who actually controls the king. Bismarck did not have to bully either Frederick or William into doing his bidding. He simply made it clear that unless he got what he wanted, he would walk away, leaving the king to twist in the wind. Both kings soon danced to Bismarck's tune. Do not be one of the many who mistakenly believe that the ultimate form of power is independence. Power involves a relationship between people. You will always need others as allies, pawns, or even as weak masters who serve as your front. The completely independent man would live in a cabin in the woods. He would have the freedom to come and go as he pleased, but he would have no power. And this is one thing that I understood for quite some time is that that would be the complete independence because as long as you have to deal with people and interact with people, even on just like the micro interaction levels, like you have to deal with a cashier at a gas station while you're filling up your car for whatever you have to do for the day. You have some sort of, even if it's the most minorest of power dynamics, you have some sort of dynamic there. And how these interactions happen on even on a micro level does affect you to some minor extent. That the all every interaction that you ever have with another human being basically shapes your ability to do so from a point of power or a point of weakness all throughout your life. Like you are changed by every minor thing, just even in the minorest of ways, which is why like anyone who says they're the same person they were 5 years ago does not understand how they're not even the same person that they were 5 minutes ago. Something has changed a little, just even in the minors a little bits. You are not the same. Yeah, but that cabin in the woods, true independence, sounds like a super dope deal. I'm not the same person as 5 seconds ago, man. Yeah, exactly. And you never really do get to be. Even if you are, you won't be soon. Do- 2 minutos, por favor. Uno minuto, por favor. I have to work on my lessons. I've been slacking. I'm trying to learn Spanish so that when I flee south of the border, that I can blend in. I would never go to Canada. I hate Canadians. Oh, go Hagen. Good to see you. Missed you for the actual majority of what seems to be this show, but cheers. Just in time. Happy 420 around the world. It takes money to change. That's an interesting. It takes change to make more money. How does a woman make a man a millionaire? Hmm. Do you know the answer to that one? Yeah, five. Yeah, you live on commie time, don't you? We've been over this. Plus, this is also a Tuesday show, and I don't know. It's hard to figure out what the right time to do this show is. Everyone got a different damn schedule. I just do it when it works for me. Okay, where were we? The completely independent man would live in a cabin in the woods. He would have the freedom to come and go as he pleased, but he would have no power. The best you can hope for is that others will grow so dependent on you that you enjoy a kind of reverse independence. Their need for you frees you because you have total control. So, uh, Louis the XI, the great spider king of France, had a weakness for astrology. He kept a court astrologer whom he admired until one day the man predicted that a lady of the court would die within 8 days. When the prophecy came true, Louis was terrified, thinking that either the man had murdered the woman to prove his accuracy, or that he was so versed in his science that his powers threatened Louis himself. In either case, he had to be killed. Why is it always the death with these people? Hey, oh, Froggo. Frogget, my guy. Welcome. In case nobody here knows, Cool Frog does the news and he makes himself he makes everybody dependent on his news broadcast so we can know what's going on in the world because the mainstream media is just lying and spinning it their own way. At least with Cool Frog, Darth Thaddeus will spin it honestly in the chat. Yeah, that's right. I just made you completely dependent on me, allegedly. One evening, Louis summoned the astrologer to his room, high in the castle. Before the man arrived, the king told his servants that when he gave the signal, they were to pick the astrologer up, carry him to the window, and hurl him to the ground, deep below. The astrologer soon arrived, but before giving the signal, Louis decided to ask him one last question. You claim to understand astrology and to know the fate of others. So tell me what your fate will be and how long you have to live. I shall die just 3 days before your majesty, the astrologer replied. The king's signal was never given. The man's life was spared. The Spider King not only protected his astrologer for as long as he was alive, he lavished him with gifts and had him tended by the finest court doctors. Oh, wait, what? Is this like something that happened in Discord? Because I didn't get no notification for nothing. So if you was doing some numbers, yes, this that was a brilliant play. Like I'm gonna die 3 days before you. That motherfucker probably knew he was about to be set up. The astrologer survived Louis by several years, disproving his power of prophecy, but proving his mastery of power. This is the model. Make others dependent on you. To get rid of you might spell disaster, even death, and your masters dare not tempt fate by finding out. There are many ways to obtain such a position. Foremost among them is to possess a talent and creative skill that simply cannot be replaced. Anybody here got a talent or creative skill? I would like to replace you. We are seeking new routes. During the Renaissance, the major obstacle to a painter's success was finding the right patron. Michelangelo did this better than anyone else. His patron was Pope Julius II, but he and the Pope quarreled over the building of the Pope's marble tomb, and Michelangelo left Rome in disgust. To the amazement of those in the Pope's circle, not only did the Pope not fire him, he sought him out and in his own haughty way begged the artist to stay. Michelangelo, he knew, could find another patron, but he could never find another Michelangelo. You do not have to have the talent of a Michelangelo. You do have to have a skill that sets you apart from the crowd. You should create a situation in which you can always latch onto another master or patron, but your master cannot easily find another servant with your particular talent. And if, in reality, you are not actually indispensable, you must find a way to make it look as if you are. Appearances are everything. Image is everything. Your reputation is everything. Guard it with your life. Uh, but if your wit gives you influence, your wit is power. If you can use your cleverness to make someone else need to keep you around, Or you can at least make it look like they need to keep you around. Yes, it's a mastery of wit, but it is a mastery of power in that regard. Having the appearance of specialized knowledge and skill gives you leeway in your ability to deceive those above you into thinking they cannot do without you. Because even if you don't have whatever you're pretending to have, there is a very significant chance that they don't either. So it's basically like bluffing in poker. I'm going to bet you that I do got it, and you would probably have to call that bet to find out if I'm bullshitting or not. And some people just won't, especially if they're weak people. They'll fold and let you take it. If your wit saves your life, I suppose that is a master of power. I mean, if it saves your life, if it increases your actual power, your influence over someone else is power. Like that is like the definition based on what we've gotten out of the laws so far is your ability to have control of situations with other people. Because, like you just said, like an independent man would live in the woods, but if you're in the game of people, then there's going to be dependent situations, and there's going to be like everything's going to be some little situation in that regard. Real dependence on your master's part, however, leaves him more vulnerable to you than the faked variety, and it is always within your power to make your skill indispensable. This is what is meant by the intertwining of fates. Like creeping ivy, you have wrapped yourself around the source of power so that it would cause great trauma to cut you away. And you do not necessarily have to entwine yourself around the master. Another person will do, as long as he or she too is indispensable in the chain. One day Harry Kahn, president of Columbia Pictures, was visited in his office by a gloomy group of his executives. It was 1951, when the witch hunt against communists in Hollywood, carried on by the U.S. Congress's House Un-American Activities Committee, was at its height. The executives had bad news. One of their employees, the screenwriter John Howard Lawson, had been singled out as a communist. They had to get rid of him right away or suffer the wrath of the committee. Harry Cohn was no bleeding heart liberal. In fact, he had always been a die-hard Republican. His favorite politician was Benito Mussolini, whom he had once visited and whose framed photo hung on his wall. If there was someone he hated, Cohn would call him a communist bastard. But to the executives' amazement, Cohn told them he would not fire Lawson. He did not keep the screenwriter on because he was a good writer. There were many good writers in Hollywood. He kept him on because of a chain of dependence. Lawson was Humphrey Bogart's writer, and Bogart was Columbia's star. If Cohn messed with Lawson, he would ruin an immensely profitable relationship. That was worth more than the terrible publicity brought to him by his defiance of the committee. Yeah, I mean, and that is also a definite nod to this man understanding, like, this is why this guy's an executive, because he knows, like, I can't go after this guy. This guy might be down here, but he is directly connected with this guy, and I can't lose my A list for having to chop out some relatively useless bullshit piece of the chain. That's why he gets to be in charge. Henry Kissinger managed to survive the many bloodlettings that went on in the Nixon White House, not because he was the best diplomat Nixon could find. There were other fine negotiators, and not because the two men got along so well. They did not. Nor did they share their beliefs in politics. Kissinger survived because he entrenched himself in so many areas of the political structure that to do away with him would lead to chaos. Michelangelo's power was intensive, depending on one skill, his ability as an artist. Kissinger's was extensive. He got himself involved in so many aspects and departments of the administration that his involvement became a card in his hand. It also made him many allies. If you can arrange such a position for yourself, getting rid of you becomes dangerous. All sorts of interdependencies will unravel. Still, the intensive form of power provides more freedom than the extensive, because those who have it depend on no particular master or particular position of power for their security. Oh, that makes sense. Like, I mean, if you've got a thing that you can take anywhere, like you're not intertwined in a situation like Kissinger was in this scenario. But the Michelangelo power, yeah, more powerful because hey, shit's getting ugly here. I'm not stuck playing this stupid game, balancing my power on a razor's edge. I can just walk away, go find something much more stable for me. Definitely much more powerful. To make others dependent on you, one route to take is the secret intelligence tactic. By knowing other people's secrets, by holding information that they wouldn't want broadcast, you seal your fate with theirs. This is called blackmail, in case anyone is wondering what this. Yeah, you just get other people's secrets, and then you blackmail the shit out of them. I don't. I'm not really down with the blackmail as a thing. I'm not gonna say if I had to do it to serve my ends in a situation, I would. Yeah, it is a blackmail. Yeah, I'm generally not my thing. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. I'm definitely not saying that at all. You are untouchable. Ministers of secret broadcast Ministers of secret police have held this position throughout the ages. They can make or break a king, or, as in the case of J. Edgar Hoover, a president. But the role is so full of insecurities and paranoia that the power it provides almost cancels itself out. You cannot rest at ease, and what good is power if it brings you no peace? One last warning. Do not imagine that your master's dependence on you will make him love you. In fact, he may resent and fear you. But, as Machiavelli said, it is better to be feared than loved. Fear you can control. Love, never. Depending on an emotion as subtle and changeable as love or friendship will only make you insecure. Better to have others depend on you out of fear of the consequences of losing you than out of love of your company. I mean, yeah, apparently, according into this, it's a subtle and changeable emotion that you should not depend on. That is the answer to this question. What is love? Shit, I gotta call my mama. Call your mama. Male or male? Black male? Black male, the MIAIL kind. The black male kind. Where you get someone's secrets and use it against them to manipulate them. It's powerful, but it's unreliable. And it leads to problems down the line. Image. Vine with many thorns. Below the root grow deep and wide. Above, the vines push through bushes, entwine themselves around trees and poles and window ledges. To get rid of them would cost such toil and blood. It is easier to let them climb. I know a mouse who can attest to this. Oh, Maddie is singing to the ladies in the crowd. That's adorable. That's just cute. That's just cute, y'all. Authority. Make people dependent on you. More is to be gained from such dependence than courtesy. He who has slaked his thirst immediately turns his back on the well, no longer needing it. When dependence disappears, so does civility and decency, and then respect. The first lesson which experience should teach you is to keep hope alive but never satisfied, keeping even a royal patron ever in need of you. Baltasar Gracian, that's another one I need to go ahead and do a lot of deeper dive into. There's so much in that one as well. And I will get into it at some point. I just gotta find all the shit I need for that. It's a long discussion. Oh, Oh dear. That page just refreshed for no reason. That's not good. Hopefully I'm not lagging disastrously terrible. Reversal. The weakness of making others depend on you is that you are in some measure dependent on them. That seems to be pretty bad spot to be in. But trying to move beyond that point means getting rid of those above you. It means standing alone, depending on no one. Such is the monopolistic drive of a J.P. Morgan or a John D. Rockefeller to drive out all competition, to be in complete control. If you can corner the market, so much the better. I think it is the phrasing of this law that ruffles my feathers. I mean, it's definitely an interesting little explanation path of how this law works. To drive out all competition, to be in complete control. If you can corner the market, so much the better. No such independence comes without a price. You are forced to isolate yourself. Monopolies often turn inward and destroy themselves from the internal pressure. They also stir up powerful resentment, making their enemies bond together to fight them. Man, we're cool for all that. I feel like there was a force in the world that had a monopoly on violence for too long of a time, and now everything is turning in on it to fight it because they got that monopoly, making the enemies bond together to incite them. The drive for complete control is often ruinous and fruitless. Interdependence remains the law. Independence a rare and often fatal exception. Better to place yourself in a position of mutual dependence than and to follow this critical law rather than look for its reversal. You will not have the unbearable pressure of being on top, and the master above you will in essence be your slave, for he will depend on you. That's a cute way of looking at being someone's servant. But that's also a really good explanation of the reversal. Like probably not a reversal that you can find in too many real life situations. 'Cause, even the people among us who live in even the smallest towns and the smallest places, everybody's got people that they interact with on somewhat regular basis, and even if it's just to the extent of not making waves, that like having a mutually beneficial relationship where like, hey, the guy at the store depends on you to keep his business going, you depend on him to keep his business going so you can keep purchasing things at your local store where you get your shit. It's all mutually beneficial. It's all interdependent. And if you're going to be interdependent and in a position of power, like indispensability in your relationship, something strongly enough symbiotic that doesn't strain either party too much, definitely seems like the way they're trying to let this one go. But oh my, that was definitely a bit of a mind fuck, y'all. I had not expected this one to go as long as it did, or to take the paths that it did. But for the few of you that stuck it out to the very end, though, I appreciate you. And I'm gonna be running this back tomorrow, same time, most likely. I might start a little early. I might start a lot early, actually. At 6 o'clock today, I was wishing I hadn't scheduled this for 8 o'clock, but at the time, I also wasn't expecting it to go till almost 10. Yes, this was one I had a lot to talk about. I'm glad when these ones come up that I actually get way more time to interact with the concept. Because sometimes I think I tend to maybe just gloss over shit when I do understand it. Excessive control will always breed revolt. Yeah, I mean, if you've got somebody in a situation that's value is subjective, and sometimes like what you get out of a situation might look on the surface to be um, unbalanced. Like you might value something about a situation enough that you would be willing to give up more than you appear to be getting. But as long as you find that point where you're getting a balance of value out of a situation based on what you're giving to that situation, it won't grate you to the point where it destroys the interdependence, the relationship itself. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway I have on interdependence. I try to do as minimal of this still. I mean, I don't I don't really do too many people. I don't really like people at all. But the people I do like, I'm usually almost to a fault passionate about, like fucking with those people. Like they mean a lot to me. But yeah, I guess I will see y'all tomorrow. And unfortunately, I can't do the stream later and get more Go Hagen in the mix. Maybe if I start doing some of these early in the morning. I don't know. I know when I used to do the like early-ish streams, you were always able to be there, so I like having Go Hagen in the conversation. Not gonna lie. But yeah, I'll catch all of y'all tomorrow time, or wherever I catch y'all across the internet. If uh, if I don't see you then, uh, have a great night, y'all. God bless. See you in the next one.